What if God called you to leave your comfortable home, your comfortable life, at your comfortable job, living your American dream comfortable life, and to go to a particular people group and share the gospel with them? Would you obey? Do you think that you would be able to do something like that? Could you really give it all up? Could you really lay it on the line for Jesus if that's what he was calling you to do? It's something I ask myself plenty of times. But today I'm going to be interviewing a good friend of mine. His name is Tom Bilderback. He's a pastor in New Orleans at the Bucare Baptist Church there on Dauphine Street, which is right next to Bourbon Street. And he was my youth pastor at one point here in my hometown where I still live. And he gave up that job, sold his house, and moved down there after Hurricane Katrina to minister to the homeless population there. And he shares his incredible journey of that and a lot of powerful testimonies of people that he met there who came to know the Lord and to do ministry there as well. And I think you'll really enjoy this episode. It's a special episode for me. I really enjoyed it, and I got to hear a lot of Tom's story, and I think you'll be inspired by it. If you want to hear the bonus section, be sure to head on over to our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/helpmebelieve and become a supporter of the show, and you'll get the bonus segment, and there's much more over there as well. You can follow the link in the description. If you enjoy the show, be sure to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks so much, and enjoy the episode. In today's modern scientific era, how could you possibly still believe in God? And the resurrection, people do not rise from the dead. And don't even start to tell me that you think the Bible is God's word. If you've ever heard questions like these, or if you've ever had doubts about your faith, this has helped me believe, where each week we aim to answer a tough question about Christianity. Our aim is to strengthen the believer and answer the critic. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Help Me Believe, the show about Christian apologetics and theology. Today's another special episode. I will be interviewing my good friend, Pastor Tom Bilderback. What's up, Tommy boy?
It's all good in the hood, man.
How you doing?
Doing well. Doing
Yeah.
well. It's down here in New Orleans where it's 70 degrees, so I'm
Is it really
enjoying.
70?
Yeah.
Man, it's freezing up here, back home. Back here in the
Well,
borough.
yeah. No, it's, we get like 5 days of freezing weather in New Orleans, so.
Well, it's freezing here, but I don't have a big, scruffy, warm beard like you got going on over there.
Well, like I tell everybody, Hayden, it's just a lack of shaving.
I got the stash going on. I don't know if you can see from
Oh,
that far.
yeah.
It doesn't stand out that great.
It's nice. It's coming in nice.
Well, if I could grow a beard like that, I probably would too. Well,
Just get old, Hayden.
yeah, okay. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on. I haven't had any of my friends on yet. Of course, I consider all of my interviewees friends, but I'm saying like a personal friend. So I hope you think of me as a friend, Tom, do you?
I do.
Okay,
Hayden. We've
that's
had
good.
a long history together.
We got a long history. Hopefully, we're only going to talk about a little bit of it.
Okay, so we're not going there. I see.
Okay. But obviously, most of the audience isn't going to know who you are unless they're from around here as well. So why don't you give us a brief introduction as to who is Tom Bilderback?
Sure. Hey, my name's Tom, and I pastor a small church in New Orleans, Louisiana. I did grow up in Texas. I moved to New Orleans when I was about 40 and have been here ever since, and I'm going to be 49 in January, so about 8 years I've been pastoring this church, and I have a wife of 29 years and a daughter that's 27 and a couple of grandkids.
Well, thank you for the introduction. Are you really 49?
I will be in January.
Man, you are getting old.
Yeah. Well, there's only two options. Remember what I told you back in you either get old or you get dead. So
Okay.
there you go.
Well, I'm glad you're just old. So, Tom was actually my youth pastor, bless his soul, whenever he lived back here where I'm from. And then, like he said, he moved to New Orleans. But before we get to the move, before we get to New Orleans, what was it like being a youth pastor here in suburban Texas?
I mean, it was great. It was a good job. I mean, I'm still in shock that people paid me to talk to teenagers about Jesus.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it didn't come without its challenges, but all in all, it was a great job and a great season. So I enjoyed it.
Well, a lot of people remember you kind of the way I do, which was Tom really cared about kids and he really wanted to teach them Jesus. But I mean, he cared for all kids, but it seemed like you always had like a special place in your heart for the kid that didn't really fit in. I mean, we had like we're up here in suburban Texas, and we've got a pastor with holes in his ears, and we've got skate park outside in the parking lot. Like we're aimed at not what you might think that we were going to aim at. So I don't know. Like everyone just kind of remembers Tom as the guy that really cared about the outcast, I guess.
Thug pastor.
Do what?
The thug pastor.
The thug pastor. The thug life pastor, Tom Bilderback.
In the bedroom conservative town of Whitesboro, Texas.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what was that all about? What was that like? Were you specifically trying to aim at kind of the left out, the least of these, or?
Yeah, I think I could be wrong, but I think there's something in the story of the Bible that might lean toward that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I just wasn't that like super popular in school anyway. So I didn't know how to attract, the super jocks and all those necessarily. So I could relate to those guys. And, so that I'm not gonna lie, that did help too. And but we did. We clearly had jocks. You were there. You were a jock. So.
Yeah, I know. How did you put up with me then?
That's another podcast for another time.
Yeah, we won't have time for that.
That's a whole nother podcast. But
we should do a whole episode, and we'll call it Falls Creek, the Confessions of Falls Creek.
Gee, that needs to be rated. What is that? Parental ratings?
I have to put that on explicit or something.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, clearly there's a thing in the whole story with Jesus, and clearly being like, hey man, I didn't come for the well.
Yeah.
I came for the sick, and so to me, that's kind of a launch point for most of the things it seems like that I do in life is realizing how sick I am. I think I'm better taking the message to folks who are not in question about their sickness. Yeah. So. It just seems to be my leaning.
So you how long were you here as a youth pastor?
I was there 6 years.
6 years.
So I was there at another church 13 years, right. and then at FBC for 6 years.
Right. Yeah. So at some point along the way, you start going on short-term mission trips to New Orleans, or when did this start?
So when I got to the church, we didn't have like a missions partner, so we began to pray about one. And in a real strange way, this email address came across my desk to this church in New Orleans. I'd never been to New Orleans. I hadn't really been to Louisiana. And so anyway, I had one of those weird nudges like, hey, just email this church and see if they ever need help. We knew of Katrina. We hadn't been involved in that. And this was like, a year and a half after Katrina. And when I emailed, the pastor just sent back and he's like, Katrina, we always need help.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is a thing. And so he called me and he talked to me for 5 or 10 minutes. And he said, you need to come down here. I'm going to mail you a key. And so that's kind of how the whole thing started.
I'm going to mail you a key?
Yeah.
That must have been one heck of an email you sent for that kind of trust right off the bat.
I think everybody had a key. I found out when I got down there.
Yeah.
But I felt special in the moment for sure.
Right. And so, what were the short-term mission trips? What were those like at the beginning?
So at first, it was just really realizing I had no clue about much culture except the one I'd grown up in. And so, going to the French Quarter and being like you've went to another world almost, and so it was a very shocking kind of cultural wake up call. And then it started to mess with me when I would come back to Whitesboro, because I would end up connecting with people who were in dire situations, or it just became that weird thing, like somebody saw a homeless man at McDonald's and so they would call me. just started like that. Like it didn't, one day I was on the way to church and there was a lady who looked pretty homeless at the intersection, the only intersection with a red light. And she had like a bicycle with a bunch of luggage on it, and it all spilled out in the street. And like I pulled over and was helping her to get it all together, and people were like driving by and looking like, hey, you're going to be late for church. And, so it just was odd things and happenings that went on after I started going to New Orleans that really started kind of turning that. But anyway, the first mission trip we actually took, most parents came to me and said, hey, my kid is not going to that city. I'm not okay with you going there. And I'm like, okay, well, this is a confirmation for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was like, I really feel like the Lord wants us to go there. So I think the first trip we went, we only had maybe like 10, 15 people went with us.
So is this a youth mission trip?
Correct. Yes.
Oh,
this is a mission trip. Yes.
Okay.
And, took
ahead.
some listeners clearly with me, but yeah, it was youth. So we just went to help this church, which is really a mission.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the French Quarter, 1 block from Bourbon Street.
Yeah.
And so we went to go help them. And it was in a rundown, raggedy old building that was like, going on 300 years old. The pastor lived an hour away. There was a homeless guy living downstairs who let the meter maid in and stuff like that. I mean, it was not your typical church setting.
It's not your typical church setting, no.
No, I think when I first went there was about 3 homeless dudes living in it in different parts of it. But one guy was there definitely because he let the meter maid in.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was always interesting. We would be, holed up in the church with some homeless guys and just going out and loving on people and cooking. The first thing I think we did, we like cooked on the sidewalk. We cooked some hamburgers and like ended up with twice as many people as we had hamburgers. So that was a learning experience for us. But anyway, we just continued to partner with them and see how we could help them along.
What were some of the ways that y'all were able to help them?
So the building was falling apart.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in it had been ignored for 15 or 20 years. So we would paint things or replace appliances or fix plumbing or just anything like to try to keep the building from literally falling down. And like I said, then we would do outreaches for them. We would just go out in the highways and byways around the French Quarter, and we would meet people and just get to know them. And then we would do that for a few days, and then we would do like a big feed or something at the church and cook a bunch of food, and we just invite everybody in and hang out. And then we found out the first year we went there, we found out that nobody was there for Christmas, and so Sonia and I actually abandoned our kind of American Christmas that year. We were done with it, and so we just started going to New Orleans for Christmas. And when the students found out, a bunch of them wanted to go, which of course made me extremely popular.
Right.
And so we
with the parents, yeah.
Yeah, grandparents, everybody. So we would spend the week of Christmas in New Orleans, and basically we would do the same thing, and we would cook a big Christmas dinner, and basically we would spend our Christmas day with people that had no family and had nowhere to be.
Yeah.
So I think one Christmas we had about 130 people show up for Christmas dinner, and so that was some of the things that we would do for the church.
Yeah. So you go on multiple trips down here to New Orleans, and you go with the youth group, you go with the church groups. So out of everybody that goes, you somehow end up moving down there. So well, I got multiple questions about this transition phase, but what was kind of your first hints, first clues that maybe this is what God wants me to do?
It wasn't even, I don't think, on the radar, but going down there had definitely messed with my gospel and had messed with what I thought walking with Jesus was. I think in my everyday life, it really did mess with me.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of hard discussions with myself and God about that. And so
is this like a financial type of thing that you're having, like you're looking at like I'm so well off, these people are in dire need?
Questioning is kind of doing my life and living pretty comfortably and being a nice guy. Is that the gospel?
Okay.
Like, is that really deep down what the gospel is about? Is being a nice guy who pays my bills and finds a way to tip off some of my generosity, which I didn't have a lot, but was that what for me looked like really following Jesus and going down there in Whitesboro. I was totally okay with that, and what was fine, but going down there, like I said, just continually messed with me, just because the people I would meet and the situations I would get in, and the brokenness that I would be thrust into that I was not used to being around at all. So that made me really kind of rethink my gospel.
Yeah. Okay, so then what were kind of the steps of transitioning, like, into, like,
it wasn't on the radar at all. I started going down there in January of 2007, and in 2000, we started going, taking a summer trip. Then by then, parents and adults in the church had really got behind it and were incredibly helpful. Like, they started cooking all the turkeys for Christmas. They'd help me do clothes drives, because they had this kind of pit in the back of the church where they handed clothes out of.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't a clothes closet yet,
right,
but it was just a room with piles of clothes. And so we would do drives, and maybe a couple of the guys from church we'd ride down with a big trailer of clothes. And
how often were you going down?
Toward the end, probably 5 times a year.
Really?
I'd already been going to Mardi Gras for 2-3 years by the time we got.
Not for the party, by the way.
That's another podcast, Hayden. No.
I just don't want anyone to be confused. I've already been going to Mardi Gras for however many years.
You don't say it, people might so he's doing ministry and drinking. Yeah. There are people that actually go to Mardi Gras to do ministry, and
okay.
that's probably a podcast on its own, because that is insanity. It is Christian insanity. But so we would go down because there are 40 or 50 ministers who stayed in this church, some of them for 30 years, who do Mardi Gras ministry. So the church becomes like a hospitality hub for all these people going out sharing the gospel in different ways, and then just strangers, hundreds of strangers on the street. There's nowhere to go to the bathroom unless you're buying a drink.
Yeah.
So it becomes a serious hub of all kind of things during Mardi Gras. But so anyway, we were doing Mardi Gras. We were going down a few times a year taking clothes. We were taking a couple of mission trips a year. So we were making several rounds. And so this is how, when you say, how is it that you end up being this guy, the pastor gets ready to leave, and he realizes that the list of people who are applying for this job is going to be extremely short.
How come?
Well, there's no pay, number one.
Okay, so this pastor that was currently there was working there for free?
Yeah, I mean, there was probably some kind of haphazard compensation. Somebody would give a love offering or something like that, but there was no paycheck.
So he was holding down another job?
Yeah. He worked at a coffee shop, and he was going to school.
Okay.
So anyway, there was no pay, there's no benefits. And there was a fallen down building. So it had a lot of high points when, you looked at what does this job have. So basically what he did was he looked around to see who showed up the most. And I just happened to make that list.
Yeah.
And so,
five times a year, and you were at the top of the list.
I was definitely on the top 3. So, and there was
who's this crazy guy from North Texas?
Exactly. And so anyway, there was me and a couple from Denton, actually, and a guy from Hawaii, and we were all on the hit list,
on the short list.
Yeah. So anyway, he hit me up Mardi Gras 2010 and said, "Hey, we're going to leave. We're going to move to Alabama, and I want you to pray about pastor." And I said, "Absolutely not."
Okay, why was that your initial reaction?
My flesh, Hayden.
So selfish reasons then.
Built my dream home.
Yeah. Which was a nice home.
I'm getting paid to hang out with teenagers and talk about Jesus and make plenty good money. So those are 2 reasons I said no immediately. The third reason was I grew up in the country.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a big, dirty city.
No, that would probably, money, everything you said, home, money, all that would be a big thing on my flesh list. But the biggest one would be just living in the city, man. We're too used to it out here. It's so quiet. I can drive and not get, no one's going to be in my way.
you don't have to dodge bullets or any of that kind of stuff. So
Well,
yeah,
unless you go way out in the country where you're from, then you gotta dodge bullets.
that's a different one. That's a different kind of stuff. Yeah. But anyway, so those are the reasons why I immediately said no, and I didn't. It wasn't on my radar. And so the first year he said pray about it, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pray about it. All right. So yeah, I didn't pray about it. I didn't. I was like that guy's a lunatic for many reasons. Number one, asking me to be a pastor. Number two, asking me to move to New Orleans. So I was like, no, mission trips are good. I'll see you on the next mission trip. So
that's that kind of wanting to keep it at arm's length thing. Like it's not that you didn't want to help.
Yeah,
it was.
But I just wanted help from where I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's kind of an important distinction. I think a lot of us feel that way about a lot of different things. Yeah.
Sure. And hey, I'm not saying I'm definitely not encouraging everyone to do what I did. In the end, I mean, you'll clearly see this was the Lord. The Lord already had this all worked out. He was just waiting on my dumb self to catch on. So anyway, a year went past, another Mardi Gras, same thing. And that time he was like, no, I'm serious, man. We're leaving. They're not going to have anybody here. I want you to pray about it. So
is he not okay? So that's a year later. And so he's not left yet? Is he not left yet because he's waiting for someone to fill his spot?
If you leave, then the place just shuts in.
Okay. So he's waiting for someone to say, to commit to filling his shoes before he leaves. Okay.
Yes. So, I mean, eventually he set a date and was like, we got to go by this date. If there's nobody here, then
it's done.
Yeah, it's closed. And it was closed when he came to it. It's been there since 1964. But after the storm, there was nobody there. The guy that was there checked out on many levels and wasn't there anymore. And so it was closed up whenever this guy came to it. But anyway, so we prayed through that summer, and a lot of crazy things happened. And we came to August after summer, and we decided that there was something to this, that God was definitely leading us in that direction. And so we confirmed with like some wisdom elders that we knew about it. And then the day before we made the decision, basically that night, I had all these arguments with God about why we shouldn't go and how stupid it was and why it was a bad idea and why it was not going to work. And then we prayed, and I just said, God, we need clarity, either end this or make it clear. Either way, I'll do it, whichever. I'm tired of wrestling with you. I'm like Jacob. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so anyway, the next morning before about 10 o'clock, the pastor of that church called, and he said, strange thing happened this morning. Both the other people pulled their names from even being considered this morning before you called me. So there's no other name now but you.
Yeah, it's either you or it's closing.
So I guess you could say I took that as my confirmation.
Yeah. So. Okay. So how did your wife feel about all this?
So the beautiful part was, by spring that year, she was like, I think God is probably calling us there.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Because
clearly when you're married, that's the thing. I mean, you've got to be, you got to be in one accord on those kind of things. So she was actually kind of nudging me, saying, because I'm the analytical, think it through, write it all down. Does it make sense?
Right.
And it wasn't. So she had already just decided, hey, God's got us. Let's just move and it'll work itself out.
Yeah.
So, and then she's the one that was going to have to abandon her dream house, really, So, but she'd already come to grips with that.
Yeah. So, and was your daughter already out of high school at this point?
Yes, she was.
Okay.
She was living in North Carolina.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, did she have to go to New Orleans, or
if
that would have played a role? Or...
She left North Carolina because when the pastor and his wife left, they were also the worship team.
Yeah.
The pastor played drums, his wife played piano, and they sang. And so when they left, the preaching and the worship went out the door. So my daughter was kind enough to come down and stay with us for like 6 months till we could kind of get our feet under us and find some musicians. Yeah. And then she went back to North Carolina.
Okay, so you moved down there. What is it like when you get there?
Well, like I said, this is kind of what we got. So no check. We can't pay you to move. You can live upstairs. Now remember, I still got a homeless guy living in the building.
Downstairs.
Downstairs, which is a whole nother story, but he's there and it's okay. I know him and it's all cool. But so that was my offer on the table, was no pay. We cannot pay you to move. Clearly no insurance benefits, 401k, nothing. It's like move upstairs, no manual to how this thing works. He had already actually left, and the association had a young guy just preaching on Sunday.
Right.
When I was there. So he was gone. So I walked in, hit the ground running.
How many people?
There was probably about, so it's a weird thing. So I would say we don't really have members technically,
right,
since we're not technically a church, but I would say we had about 8 or 10, maybe 8 like solid people.
Yeah.
And then there was like a handful of come and go folks. Mm-hmm. So probably 15 or 20.
Yeah.
Something like that. So.
Okay. So when you leave here, your home isn't sold or anything like that yet?
No.
Okay. So and you're not walking into a salary?
No.
And neither is your wife?
No.
How'd you get there? How'd you get there?
How'd I get there? Or
I'm just saying, I don't know if I could just pack up and go with nothing.
Yeah,
that's literally what you did, though.
That was
just whatever's in your bank account, whatever's in your pockets, and go.
Yep. And the church was super kind. Like, they did a money tree for us and sent us off with a blessing, just last check or whatever. And we did have, some money in the savings, but we still had a house payment,
right?
And all these things.
Yeah, your bills don't go away. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So put our house up for sale. But like I said, it didn't sell for quite some time. So anyway, so I get there and I'm first time pastoring a church, and not a standard church.
This is a good place to start.
Yeah. Gosh. I kind of feel like it was almost like I started at last stop shop. Like, this seems like the place that they should put guys right before they get rid of them. That's what it feels like. So, so anyway, that's where I started at. So, but anyway, so I get there and the first few days seems okay, but then I'm like, all right, God, this train's only going to go for so long. Like, this blessing tree money's not going to go far.
Yeah.
We only had like one giver given like $250 guaranteed, and that was it. That was all we had. Mm-hmm. So within a week, a guy knocks on the door, and because I still have no income, within about a week and maybe a week and a half, a guy knocks on the door one day and he says, "Hey, I heard you're a mechanic." And I'm like, "Who'd you hear that from?" And he's like, "I heard it from one of your church members." I'm like, "Well, I haven't worked as a mechanic in like 6 years, and I don't have any tools." And he's like, "Well, I need a maintenance man." I said, I've never worked as one. He said, "So can you do this, this, and this?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm from the country, man. I can do that."
I'm from the country, man.
We fix everything, man. So,
oh my gosh.
We don't call anybody. We do everything ourselves. So anyway, everything he said, I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And he said, "Okay, well, show up at this address on Monday and tell me how much you want an hour and how many hours you want to work." And I'm like, this is bizarre. Yeah. So anyway, I figure out a schedule, what I can work and pastor the church. I think I wrote down $12 an hour, and I'm like, I hope I'm not asking too much. Yeah. And it's way more than I'm making right now. And so I go to this address, and I look up, and I'm standing in front of the Tropical Isle Bar.
Oh.
Now, the Tropical Isle is iconic on Bourbon Street. They serve this drink called the hand grenade, which is in many rap songs and such as that. So and this
is where you're showing up for work.
Correct.
Okay.
I didn't know it. I did not know that's where I was going. I just went to an address.
So he just gave you an address. Okay.
I knock on the door, and this guy comes to the door, and I'm like,
so Southern Baptist Tom shows up at Tropical Island. Okay.
So I show up there, and the guy who gave me the paper is like, "Hey, you're here." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Hey, man, did you know that I'm the pastor over there?" He said, "Yeah." "Did you not know this was a bar?" I said, "Nope." And he said, "Well, what do you think about it?" And I'm like, "Man, like, I need a word right now, Lord, and quickly. I can't call nobody or nothing."
Yeah.
And so anyway, I just immediately, like, I had a peace about it, and I was like, "Man, I'll take the job." So anyway, I took the job as the maintenance man at Tropical Isle. So I'm working inside 7 bars on Bourbon Street.
7?
Yeah, they have like 7
Oh,
bars.
okay, so this owner owns more than just this
Oh
one?
yeah.
Okay,
Oh
I
yeah. There's
got you.
multiple locations of this thing, and they have other bars with different names owned by them.
Yeah.
So I'm a maintenance man in all these bars and a restaurant they own. So
Welcome to New Orleans.
welcome to New Orleans, right in the nitty gritty of Bourbon Street. Like you've never seen anything till you've seen drain water in Bourbon Street inside of bars. I'm gonna tell you, it doesn't get any nastier than that. Um, so
I'll take your
so yeah,
word for it.
I'm working inside. Inside the bars, behind the curtains, everything behind the bars. Working on stuff, and no one there knows that except the guy that hired me knows that I'm the pastor.
Yeah.
So they'll just think I'm a guy who's working maintenance, and so it makes for some super interesting situations.
Yeah.
I get to hear a lot of things about Christians, none good.
Right.
And yeah, so and but man, put us in some amazing opportunities to love people who aren't like us in
Yeah.
very extravagant ways.
Can you think of an example that you're okay sharing?
Sure. So there was a girl named Eve that worked at one of the bars, and Eve hated Christians.
Yeah.
She had a lot of bad experiences in front of the bar with Christians, with signs screaming all kinds of things at her and telling her that God hated her and that she was worthless and she was a whore and all these kind of things. And so anyway, when she struggled with alcoholism and depression and suicidal thoughts, and so I would be working and we would get to have conversations, and I would just encourage her. And one day I just talked to her about how much God loved her, and she's like, "Are you a Christian? Are you a hypocristian?"
A hypocristian.
Yeah. I'm like, well, let's just let me be who I am, and then you make the call on that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna say. And so anyway, I told her, I was like, hey, I'm not gonna lie to you. I pastor this church over here, and this is where I'm at. And so for a long time, she wouldn't step by or stop by or anything. And we decided we got her like a pedicure and some flowers and got her a gift card to a place, and just kind of showered her with some affection and love. And she was very hurt. She'd been through some terrible things in her life. And one day we got phone numbers anyway. One day she called me, and she'd been through some terrible stuff with a relationship, and she was about to take her life. And so I convinced her to come outside, and we took her over to the church and just got to love her, honor, and pray for her in a while. First time she'd ever stepped foot in a church. And so anyway, from that experience and all that went on with Eve, it just led from one experience to another at the bar. And what that did was it gave me a DNA for who we were to be as a church body, because I didn't have one. But that job gave me a living DNA of who we were going to be as we went on, and how we were going to be Christ in our neighborhood. That's
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's numerous stories that you could probably tell like that then.
From the bar, yeah. And one quick cool one is the day I went to work there.
Yeah.
I come out, and the guy that hires me sitting I come back to the church. Me and Sonia are going to walk to Jackson Square, which is the epicenter of the French Quarter. We walk by, and the guy that hires me sitting on the steps, he said, "Hey, come here." So I go over there, and he said, "Hey, why are you here?" I was like, "You really want to know?" And he said, "Yeah." And so from the get-go on the job, the day one, I get to share the love of God with this guy who hires me.
Yeah.
Ray, who later on will end up coming to the church on Sundays to check things out. And at 54 years old, a guy from California, on an Easter, he'd never heard the resurrection story. And he gets up and interrupts my amazing sermon and says, "Hey, I want to give my life to Jesus. I've never heard this before."
Right in the middle of the service.
Man, you're killing me. I was like, "No, we're finished. That's good enough for Easter right there. I'm pretty sure we're done."
I think that's how it works, yeah.
Ray became a believer, and then I got to disciple Ray, and we would pray in the bar when things went wrong, and so yeah, it was cool.
That is cool. So, okay, so you get down there, you start working at a bar, preaching on Sundays, and so what were some things you tried to do to interact with the community, to try to share the gospel, to try to show God's love? I know kind of your approach right now because I've been down there and I visited and done some of the ministries. But did so right now you do kind of like a shower Friday. You work with some different partners to try to get people off the streets and back into working and things like that. But were there any failed things that you tried, or what was kind of?
Yeah, I mean, and not I don't think so much in the avenues where we tried to meet people, but there was just plenty of stories that didn't turn out like these great success stories.
Yeah.
Like they were tragic and ended horribly, and
Yeah.
we're not, we're not just hard on the person, but we're hard on us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're places to learn a lot of wisdom and be in a mess with someone and get and even wrestle with your own mess while doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there was we moved a guy in who had probably multiple mental health diagnoses, who in the end, this lady was going to my church who was a psychologist, told me that he had the most severe case of split personalities that she'd ever seen in her life. Mm-hmm. This dude was living with me, and he was like, it was like Jekyll and Hyde. He was one guy during the day and another guy at night. We didn't even know it. Mm. And I mean, thank God nothing ever like happened to any of us, but it most definitely could have. We definitely were. I mean, God had His hand on us during that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, then I guess just take us kind of through what your kind of those ministries are that you do now. So
something we realized real quick was, Christians are not coming down to where I'm at to go to church. Yeah. Like, we don't have a parking lot. We don't have any programs. If you come there and you're there more than one Sunday, you're going to work. Mm-hmm. So it's not a glorious place to come and worship for the most part.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's not a family neighborhood or anything else.
Is there other churches anywhere close?
There are only 3 churches in the French Quarter, and it's a square mile. So there's one other evangelical church down the street from me that is Fouqueray Assembly of God.
Okay.
And then there's the big Catholic church in Jackson Square. Okay. That's it.
Okay.
That's it. And there's about 4,000 people that live in the French Quarter-ish. That number changes all the time. So.
In a square mile?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So, and there's lots of places that don't have anyone living in them because they're condos and stuff as well. Yeah. But anyway, so what we decided was, if we were going to grow as a body of people, we were not going to be able to do it in the conventional way of, sending out flyers or, even knocking on doors or stuff, because our neighborhood is highly, for the most folks that have houses. We have a few neighbors who are believers who come and are part of our place. But all in all, it's like millionaires and homeless people. And so I have one millionaire maybe that comes to church. Yeah. And he's a cool dude. But for the rest of folks, they're not looking for a spiritual community of that kind. So we decided the only way that we were going to see people come into a community of Christ and do that was we were going to have to meet them where they were and walk with them until they saw the love and the value and the beauty of knowing that. And so the only resources we had in the way we could do it is we could open doors, like you said, and we make this place called Shower Friday, where basically we offer a place for someone that hasn't had a shower or a hot meal or clean socks or underwear or shirt, to come in and get those things. And so we just took that and tried to do it the very best that we can. Like, we don't serve slop. It's not a chow line. Like, we hang out for an hour and a half with everybody that comes in. It's about building relationships. We usually we have about 70 folks that pass through every Friday.
Yeah. Now it became pretty popular. You have to turn people away. You have tickets, right?
Yeah, we had to start doing tickets because the crowds got so big we couldn't build relationships because it was just so crazy. So we're number one, we're so close to ground zero for all the craziness that's going on. People don't have to get far away from their hustle or their addiction or whatever to get to us.
Yeah.
So that's one reason we're popular. Another reason is because we serve home cooked food. And the main thing, and it's like, this is like the kudo for us, is that we get told by strangers that, we treat people like they're humans.
Yeah.
Like we know your name, we acknowledge you. We're we're really hustling you with food, showers, and clothes for one reason. We want to get to know you and what's going on with you, and where and how we can become Christ to you in that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're unabashed about that.
Yeah.
Every Friday I tell people, hey, this is why we're doing what we're doing.
No. So every Friday they 70 people or so come in and they get food, not just food but home cooked food. And so where does the food come from actually?
So early on we all had to cook everything. We cooked everything and then ran Shower Friday, which is an emotional, physical, psychological, spiritual like marathon.
How so?
A Friday will suck the life out of you. Well, one thing, I have to show up at about 6 o'clock, 6:30. I have to hand out tickets at 7 up at Armstrong Park.
Okay, so you go to why that park?
Well, we had so many people outside our doors that looked like the pool of Bethesda, and my millionaire neighbors are not exactly happy, and they don't understand what I do in the end with people. Like, the whole idea is like we're there to help people transition to another place in life, but there's a period where people aren't there yet.
Yeah.
And all they see is people laying on cardboard and stretched out drunk or whatever in front of my place. So we had to move giving the tickets to another location and tell them, hey, do not show up at my door till like 10:30 when we open the door.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how much they obey that, because the one time I came down there and we showed up on Friday morning and there was somebody sleeping outside already.
Yeah, well, you do and it's just gonna happen sometimes.
Yeah. So. But so anyway, you go to a park and there's 70 people there to hand tickets out to.
Some mornings. This last Friday there was.
Yeah.
So anyway, we hand out all the tickets, then we go back, and then it's hustling to get the clothes closet prepped and ready, all the shelves filled, get the bathrooms ready, get the tables set, get all the silverware and plates, cups and ready, and get the tea made or water or whatever. And then, sometimes we'll have special lanyap given by people, for folks coming in. We'll have to get all those things ready and prepped. So yeah, it takes a team of people just to get it all ready. It's come a long way from when we first kind of haphazardly did it. So. Yeah.
So what are some of the success stories from Shower Friday? What are some of the connections, or when everything goes exactly how you wanted it to, what happens from a Shower Friday? So,
it's long. This is not a quick thing. This is a long-term thing. And so, I'll just think of one Shower Friday thing for sure. Not long ago, a guy named Tim, who is a professed Satanist, who comes to Shower Friday, very regular, and loves us as people, loves us. He had gone through some pretty terrifying things in his life, and when he came that Friday, he was ready to take his life because there's no reason to live, clearly. And so he actually asked me, he's like, man, can we go somewhere and talk? And so just got to go with him and share what Christ had done in my life and how that had made a difference for me, and having hope, and, actually let me pray with him, and we didn't have, it wasn't like we had an aha moment and he, surrendered his life to the Lord or whatever, but he has ears to hear. Like, he listens to things, and he'll have discussions about those kind of things. And so it's, like I said, it's a journey, but it just takes time to build those kind of relationships with people. And, but yeah, I was thinking of a few stories that had come full circle from Shower Friday. So there was a lady in the square named Denise, who was a tarot card reader, and she was addicted to crack, and she was selling crack. And her life had just dwindled down until there was nothing left of it, and it was just a wreck. And one Friday she cried out and said, can you do anything? And I was like, hey, Denise, we'll go as far as you go. we'll go in as deep as you go to change life. And of course, so we shared that we had some resources we could connect her to. I'd made partners with a lot of places around the country with long-term transformation programs, detoxes, all kinds of different tools for different people. And I just said, "Would you trust me?" And she said, "Yeah, I'll trust you." And so again, clearly, I shared the good news about God loving her and wanting a relationship with her, and how that was key to life changing, but that she was also going to have to do a lot of hard work. And so she actually went to a partner of ours in Arkansas and was there in a program for a year. Now, I didn't think, because this woman was so wrapped up in tarot and voodoo and all this other, stuff, I didn't think I just thought there's no way that she'll ditch, but she finished the program with flying colors, just has a complete different identity. She actually then turned around and became a worker there at the place. So I called and she would answer the phone.
Yeah.
And so she's graduated from that. She's still in Little Rock, and she's got her own place now and a job, and is part of a church, and so that's one of those ones you want to post up for everybody to see, clearly.
Yeah.
So that's one. A couple that we met on Shower Friday with a little dog, Dean and Connie, were strung out on heroin. And so we always invite everybody from Friday to Sunday. Like, we tell everybody, hey, this is why we do what we do. We've got some people that are attempting to follow this guy Jesus. They meet on Sunday at 10 o'clock. You're welcome to come, whether you follow Jesus or not. And so they came and just kind of broke down during service and said, hey, we're strung out on heroin and we're spending every dime we have, and we're dying. And so we were like, okay, well, let's see what we can do. So anyway, we decided that they were living in a house that was full of heroin addicts and dealers. They were renting a room there with their she was on disability. With basically, the drug dealer showed up every month and took the disability check because they had already financed that much heroin every month. So they would beg for food. And so anyway, we went over and decided that they could no longer live in that house and try to get away from what was going on. And so I went to go move them out, and we were going to put them up until we could get them into a program. We were going to put them in a cheap hotel for a couple of days. So the day I went to go move them out, I was in the apartment with them, boxing up a little bit of their junk, and there's a knock at the door, and I'm like, who's that? And they're like, it's either one of two people. It's either somebody looking for drugs or it's a drug dealer. And I'm like, so Sonia, my wife's out in the car waiting on me. She's already seen this person come down the alley to where the door is, and she's trying to blow up my phone. And so I open the door, and it's the drug dealer. And so it's my first interaction with a drug dealer that's close up. It's just a little odd, or at least knowing that I'm with one.
Yeah.
And so anyway, Dean's like, hey man, this is our pastor. And so the dude literally pulls his shirt up to show me that he doesn't have his gun in his pants right now, which, I felt better about that at that moment. So yeah, so there was a guy in the alley in a wheelchair with a needle stuck in his thigh. Like, it was a pretty dicey situation that we were moving him out of. But anyway, we got him there, and they detoxed off of heroin in the hotel. It was terrible. Oh. But we didn't realize that's not even the beginning. Like, once you come off the chemical, then the emotional and the physical and all, and it was a rough several weeks with them in and out of different places, and they getting sick. And I mean, the good news is today that Dean is a welder, has a great job. They live in Homa. They're doing amazing. They're part of a church. But there again, like I said, they don't all end like that.
No.
So, yeah.
Man, that's incredible. So you're kind of pretty well known as Tom, the homeless pastor.
Worse, yeah.
So probably people turn to you for advice about this sort of thing all the time. But what advice would you give someone who wants to effectively help or witness to the homeless in their community?
Well, I mean, I think witnessing is kind of a no-brainer. It's just like anybody else.
Yeah.
They're human beings, you know. So that doesn't change homeless or not homeless. But the other thing is, like, I think the biggest thing is if you're going to if you have a heart and you're called to work with people who are in those situations, you need to get to know all the resources around you well, like become very well vested with the resources that are around you, because a lot of times there are people already doing things that you need, and doing them well, and a lot of times you can just be the connector and whatever the between that person and wherever it's at, But there's an element of having to just spend time with people to find out what they really want. And I love that Jesus has this moment with the blind guy where, the blind guy's calling it, "Oh, son of David, yeah." And Jesus is like, "What do you want?" I mean, that's really what he says. Yeah. "What do you want?" And the guy's hollering, "Have mercy on me. I want to see him." And sometimes you just have to spend time with someone, and you have to hear all kinds of stories and go through situations, and then you just really have to get down to like, hey, what is it you really want? Because people in all kinds of situations will come up with stories about things that's not really what they want. Yeah. So it's investing and spending time in people, and sometimes to no fruitful end. You find out that they didn't really want what they said.
Yeah, I think that's a question that probably people have and I would wonder too, is how do you, I guess you probably can't. I mean, can you help someone that doesn't really want to change or doesn't really?
Oh, I mean, clearly no. You
just love them, and
if they don't go as far as you go, they're not ready.
Yeah.
That was a good thing I learned from my old psychologist friend is if a person that you're attempting to help won't meet you halfway, that they're not ever going to be able to use the help you're giving them.
So you have Shower Fridays, so anybody can come. Anybody can come to that, whether they want to change or not. And then you talk to everybody and say, we have this available. Like, if you do want to change.
Yeah.
And then
resources, we're connected with people, and people have come to know that by now. And then we'll have people get up and share their story. People who come through that'll come back and share their story at Shower Friday.
So you have a time for testimonials at Shower Friday.
It's like an every Friday thing. Yeah. We have our biggest testimonial right inside the clothes closet. So there's a lady in the clothes closet named Mama Rose, and she was drunk out of her mind for about 30 years in Jackson Square. She shot a guy, went to Angola. She's rough and tumble, man.
Yeah.
And she came to trust Jesus, and she quit. She was drinking 2 liters of vodka a day, and stopped drinking cold turkey, bro.
Cold turkey.
Cold turkey. Yeah.
Wow.
Not suggested. Don't do that.
I was gonna say that. I mean, you're talking about those withdrawals earlier with a heroin addict. That would probably have a similar effect.
Well, you can die from alcohol withdrawal.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, just for her, that's how it worked. Anyway, she runs the clothes closet. So,
so you got a testimonial going all the time on repeat.
People say, "Hey, I can't change" or whatever, and Rose is like, "Don't tell me what you can't do."
Yeah. Exactly.
So I have one all the time, but then we have some coming and going sometimes to do that.
Yeah, very cool. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your story and getting this information out there. I think it's a real effective thing for people to hear these kind of stories, and not just the winning testimonies that you talked about, but yourself and that normal guy from North Texas can go. And
I tell folks all the time that are there at the VU, like you guys have taught me as much about me as I've ever taught you.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for having me, bro.
Hey guys, don't go anywhere just yet. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you're on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast from, become a subscriber there as well, and leave us a review. Thanks so much for listening, guys. If you want to watch the bonus segment, click the Patreon link below, or go to www.patreon.com/helpmebelieve. Become a supporter of the show. We sure appreciate it, guys. We'll see you next time.